All right, our next speaker, we got to stay on schedule because they make these senators work, especially the new guys, I guess. Senator Josh Holley was just elected last year. He was the Attorney General in Missouri. He's from a small town in central Missouri, Lexington, Missouri, and he went off to Stanford for undergrad and then Yale for law school, and then he clerked for the U.S. Supreme Court. Then he came home to Missouri. He met a really smart lady he married, who also was a very good lawyer and clerked for the Supreme Court. Became Attorney General, got in as Attorney General in Missouri, and he did what most politicians don't do, which is he took on huge businesses that most politicians think of as their most likely allies in running for their next office. And he did that really well and became really well known for that. But then had to step up and rid Missouri of our senior senator, Senator Claire McCaskill. But Senator Holley has now been up here for just a short time in Washington, and he's already made waves for being smart and principled, and especially even taking on nominees from the president's to the judiciary and asking hard questions. So he's been a great friend, and I have a special surprise. I know he knows this now, but for you all, a year ago we gave him an Eagle Award, but he was on the campaign trail, so he never picked it up. So we have his Eagle Award, and I'm going to give it to him now, so at least he has to carry it back to his office or Missouri, and I don't have to carry it. But ladies and gentlemen, Senator Josh Holley. Josh. If you're going to pull us out,
Thank you so much, Ed. It's great to see all of you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for being here. I'm just so, you encourage me. I mean, seeing you who are willing to be here, willing to stand up for your beliefs. And I think the number one thing that I want to say to you is don't back down and don't apologize for what you believe. Whether it's on your college campuses, whether it's with your family, with your friends, we have got to stand strong and be bold and not back down. And I'll just tell you, I'm the youngest senator in the institution, in the United States Senate. And since coming to the Senate, I've gotten, my fair number of talks about, you need to play by the rules here and do it the way that you were told to do it. You need to listen to your elders and listen to your betters. And a lot of times what that really translates into, you need to sit down and shut up and quit being such a problem for everybody else. Well, I'm here to tell you, don't sit down, don't shut up, make yourself an issue, because we've got to stand up for the things that we believe in. We've got to go out there and advocate for them and fight for them every day. How about on your college campuses? I mean, what's going on college campuses today is absolutely ridiculous. And nobody knows this, I'm sure, better than you. I mean, where have we gotten to the point in America when we can't even listen to an opposing viewpoint without crying for a safe space? I mean, really, it's unbelievable. There couldn't be anything more out of step with the First Amendment and the values of our Constitution than the idea that we ought to be able, that the left ought to be able to shut down any speech that it doesn't like, that they shouldn't even be exposed to it, that it shouldn't even exist. I mean, this is just outrageous. And I'm here to tell you, we will not be able to sustain a democracy if that is the kind of attitude that we're going to take. I mean, if you can't even be exposed to viewpoints that you disagree with, I mean, my goodness, this country will not be able to endure. It's vital that you refuse to play along with that game. Don't be silenced. Don't let them tell you that your speech is out of bounds. Don't let them tell you that your viewpoints are somehow out of the mainstream and therefore not protected by the First Amendment to the Constitution. Don't let them marginalize you. You represent the mainstream of America. You represent the future of America. You represent the best of America, and that's why you need to stand strong, be bold, and stay tough on your campuses. And so I encourage you to do it every single day. I've got my own fights to fight here in the United States Senate, and Ed mentioned one of my roles. I sit on the Judiciary Committee to the United States Senate, and I have a background as a lawyer. I started my career working at the U.S. Supreme Court and had the chance to litigate there. I'm Attorney General of the state of Missouri, and I got to represent the state in litigation in various courts around the country, including the U.S. Supreme Court. And so I take all of that really seriously. And I take vetting judges who believe in the Constitution really, really seriously. And so it is my job to ask tough questions and to get straight answers. And I do it of every nominee who comes before that committee. And talking about being marginalized, we recently had a nominee who came before the committee who compared a faithful Catholic family. We're trying to follow the teachings of their church and the teachings of the Scripture. This nominee compared them to the KKK. compared them to white racists, white nationalists. Also compared this Catholic family to radical Islamic imams who wanted to take all voting rights away from women. What he said is that this Catholic family following their beliefs is no different. His word was, there's no distinction, that's his phrase, no distinction between them and KKK members who invoke Christian teachings or radical imams who want to take away women's rights and force their ideology on all the rest of us. And I said, I object to that. I just think that that's outrageous. You can't tell me that there's not a distinction between people of faith honestly, sincerely, and peacefully following the teachings of their church and the Bible and radical racists and radical imams. You can't tell me there's a distinction. There sure as heck is a distinction. And we need to stand up and fight for that distinction. And I'm pleased to tell you that just today, that particular nominee just withdrew his nomination. He is not going to sit on a federal court in this country. And he shouldn't. It's the right outcome. But this is what we have to do, stand up and fight not to be marginalized, fight not to be pushed aside, fight not to be silenced, but fight for our constitutional rights, our constitutional liberties, and by the way, for the rights and liberties of everybody else as well. And that leads me to the last thing I want to talk to you about before I take your questions. And that is another group of people who I think would like to silence our voices, and that's big tech. You know, these big tech companies, these platforms like Facebook, like Google, they exercise unprecedented control over the way we communicate with each other, over the news and information that we consume. And we've seen far too many instances. And I've sat in far too many hearings and heard from far too many people who have talked about the censorship that too many of these companies are exercising against conservatives and against libertarians. And it just has to stop. I mean, my attitude is this, that big tech is welcome to have whatever political viewpoint they want, but they're getting all kinds of special favors from government in the form of special exemptions from regulation that no other newspaper, no television, no other platform get. They get these sweetheart deals from government, and then they turn around and they try to stifle conservative viewpoints. Well, if they're going to do that, if they're going to behave like the editorial page of the New York Times, they should be treated like the editorial page of the New York Times, and they shouldn't get the special carve-outs that government has given them. It's time that we held their feet to the fire and said that, look, you're going to have to exercise your power in accordance with the special deals that government's given you. So you're going to have to actually be a free speech platform and allow people to come and express their views. You should not discriminate on the basis of speech. You should not discriminate on the basis of viewpoint, as we say in First Amendment law. You should welcome all viewpoints to the table. And if you're going to discriminate, then you should stop getting the special favors that government gets you. And I think the president's right. It's time we ask some tough questions about big tech and their power over news, their power over information, and their power over your daily life. Because let me tell you, they are collecting more personal information on you than any entity in the history of the world. Some people worry about government surveillance. You ought to worry about tech surveillance. I can promise you right now, Facebook and Google, they know a heck of a lot more about you than the federal government does. Facebook and Google, they know more about you than you probably know about yourself. They've been building a file on you from the first time you ever clicked anything online. And what are they using it to do? Make money, lots and lots of money without your permission, without your consent, without your approval. That needs to change. It's time that we actually respected the property rights that we have in our own information, respected our own ability and our rights to communicate our views free from censorship. These are the new rights in the digital age that we need to demand. And I'm going to keep fighting for them here in the United States Senate. I'm happy. Thank you. And with that, I'm happy to take your questions. I'll let you call them. Yeah, you bet. Until they pull me away.
Good afternoon, Senator. I'm Nate Ferrol from Orlando, Florida, and I have two questions.
You bet.
What do you look for when you're on the Judiciary Committee with Senator Graham? What do you look for in a nominee, and how many more Supreme Court justices do you think the president will have in the next, when he wins his next term? We all know he's going to win, right?
That's right. Six more years to go of this administration, and I'll start with that second question first. I think it's possible the president could get one, two more. I mean, you never know, right? I mean, anything is possible. But I think certainly one or two more is very much within the realm of possibility. And obviously, that's really, really important, the United States Supreme Court. And he's done a tremendous job. I mean, this president has put two high-quality judges on that bench, and it's already making a big difference. This president has put 100 new judges on the federal courts. You got the Supreme Court, and then the federal courts of appeals, and the federal district court beneath that. And the president put over 100 judges on those courts. And it's having a huge effect already. He's going to have the opportunity to appoint more judges, in terms of just sheer numbers, more judges to the federal bench than maybe any other president in American history at this rate that he's going now. And that's really going to matter to our future and to our liberties. So what do I look for in a judge? I look for somebody who's pro-Constitution. It's really pretty simple. I mean, the media and the liberals act like it's all very complicated. It's not that complicated. You're either for the Constitution or you're not. You either believe in the Constitution the way the people wrote it, and you believe in the laws the way that we, the people, wrote them, or you want to impose your own values from the bench. And what I notice is that judges who want to impose their own values, I notice it's never our values that get imposed. Have you ever noticed that? It's always the left wing, Wall Street, Hollywood. It's always those people who get their values imposed. Judges are not in the business of imposing values and shouldn't be. So if I come upon a judge who I think doesn't have the kind of restraint and respect for the rule of law, I'm not going to vote for him or her. I want pro-Constitution judges, and no president in my lifetime has done a better job of nominating those people than Donald Trump. I mean, he's really been spectacular.
Go ahead, come on.
Hi, I'm Bill George. I'm from Farmington, Missouri.
Very good.
It's more of a state issue since I'm from Missouri, and I know you are too. But there's a ballot proposition that's going to come on in 2020 about term limiting the Secretary of State, Attorney General, and the other executive offices. I was just wondering your opinion on that after having served in the
Since I'm not Attorney General any longer, I'm all for term limits. I think they should all be termed. I'm generally in favor of term limits. I think that's a good thing. We need them here. And I've supported a constitutional amendment to impose term limits on United States senators and congressmen. And in Missouri, we have them obviously in the legislature. It's kind of strange. We have them for some of the constitutional offices, statewide offices, not for all of them. I think we should have them for all of them. It's bizarre that we don't. And so, I think we should have them. It's a great question.
Josh Schlafly from Ohio.
It's a great name. Love that name. Yeah.
In regards to heartbeat laws and the
Yeah.
ability to make it to the Supreme Court potentially
Yeah.
With a positive outcome, what do you think the reality of those happening?
It's interesting. I mean, we're going to have a lot of different pieces of litigation going forward here. Which ones will the court take, the big court, capital C court, which ones will they take? I don't know the answer to that. If I had to guess, my guess is that the Supreme Court is going to sit back here for a little bit and wait and see what develops in the lower courts. Just because my sense is that neither side on the court right now is sure that they have really 5 solid votes for a lot of different things, but including in this area, including the area of life. So my guess is we'll see some sort of caution here and allowing these cases to develop in the lower courts. But listen, I mean, I worked at the Supreme Court. I practiced there. What I've learned is you can never predict that court. I mean, they surprise me. So who knows? Maybe they'll reach out and take one of these cases lickety split. But I kind of doubt it. And I think we've got different bills, different protections in different states on life, and so we'll probably get different outcomes in the lower courts, and we'll see what develops there. But it's going to be a very interesting few years, and watch that space. And this is why judges really matter. I mean, to get to the Supreme Court, you got to go through the district court, you got to go through the appellate court, and that's why yes, we need really good justices on the Supreme Court, but we need pro-Constitution judges on the courts of appeals and then on the district courts as well, and we got to keep plugging away to get them there.
We got time for one more question over here.
Hi, my name's Opal. I'm from Colorado. Going back to the kind of the beginning of your speech, it sounded very Winston Churchill, don't give up, stand up tall, all that stuff.
That's a compliment. Thank you.
Sometimes it's hard to know how to present that, especially on a college campus or in a group of younger people who don't agree with you. They're very good at signs and catchphrases and being loud. Should we be playing the same game they are with the shock value? Should we be providing more comprehensive information because they don't do that, or should we be kind of aligning ourselves with how they do rhetoric, and how do we find that balance?
That's a great question. I think that just as we shouldn't give in to their attempts to to write the First Amendment out of our Constitution, we also shouldn't give in to their tactics of trying to silence people we don't agree with. I mean, I think we should do the opposite and show that we're not afraid of debate. I mean, so maybe the thing to do is host some debates. I mean, many of the college campuses you're on appear to be desperately afraid of open, honest debate. I have no idea why. Maybe it's because they can't really defend their views. I mean, liberalism these days is really just a climate of opinion, right? It's just something people absorb. I mean, it ceased to be a really rigorous, well-defended philosophy. So I think one way to expose that is invite people of differing views. Invite a liberal and then invite a conservative libertarian to come together and to debate and show that we're happy to host debates. We're not afraid of speech that we disagree with. I mean, we're happy to have the conflict of ideas. Let's put it on display and let people decide for themselves. We don't have to run to a safe space. We can listen to ideas we disagree with and say, I don't agree with that. Doesn't mean that you're a bad person. Just means I don't agree with you. So I think that modeling that kind of winsome, welcoming, principled stand that is really in accord, again, with our deepest constitutional values is something that could just be a tremendous example, because we're just not seeing that. And unfortunately, we're not seeing it in Congress either, and that's part of the problem. I mean, it's just the incredible partisanship that you see here, and people's refusal to listen to each other sets a tone for the whole rest of the country. And the idea that we can't have principled disagreement anymore. If you disagree, I mean, you see this in the way President Trump gets treated. You know, if you agree with the president, you're a terrible person. You're either an idiot or you're a terrible person. We couldn't possibly just admit that maybe we just disagree politically. So we've got to get back to a place, and we've got to expect from political leaders that they model this idea that, you know what, there is such a thing as a principled disagreement, and we ought to be able to have open, honest, robust debates on principle without trying to shut down the other side. They tell me I got to go vote. Thank you so much for having me here. Thank you for what you're doing, and God bless you.